Hey guys, welcome back to Alice Customs Project Car TV. And today I've gathered up some of my tools and some stuff I bought for a project. And what I want to do is build a stand for my grinders. This is just 4 of them. I have, I don't know, 5 or 6, maybe more than that. Probably 2, 3, maybe even a 4th one get used pretty often because I basically keep different wheels on each grinder, so I'm not always having to change it when I want to, go from a cutting wheel to a flap wheel to a, if I'm trying to grind down a big area where I need a grinding disc. So I want to build a rack that'll hold these. Would also like to put some of my hammers. I don't know exactly which hammers yet that I want to put under there, but for sure a couple of the ball peens. I'm kind of considering maybe on one side putting my body hammer tools, but on the other hand, I'd also like to have a rack that holds a sandbag and maybe some other forming tools, and I may want to do that and put the body hammers there. But that's something to consider. I want to build this rack to be mobile, so I got some casters that are supposed to be good to like 300 pounds each or something. And I picked up on one of the sale days at Harbor Freight, I picked up just a power strip that's got a nice long 15-foot cord, and it's supposed to be good to, I think it claims 20 amps or something, but it's got 6 outlets, so I should be able to roll this thing over, plug my grinders in, and work right off of it. That's the thought process here.
Welcome back to Allison Customs Project Car TV. I'm Jeff Allison, and thank you for watching.
I kind of drew up what I'm thinking, and originally my original thought process here, when you see the drawing, was I'd lay out 4 grinders like this, and then I'd have hammers below it. And I think it's going to get, even with all these, but I think it's going to get wider than I really want here. So I think I'm going to make it 3 grinders wide and just put them on both sides of a post, so I could hold 6 grinders on there, and that would probably let me get, that many hammers anyway. So let me show you my drawing. Okay, so there's the original idea. It'd be a couple of cutouts to hold the grinder. Post goes down. This is a side view. Post goes down to a tray, and I decided to put a border on the tray and then put some expanded metal in there for the base. That way it wouldn't collect dirt and liquids and all that. And then I would make an extra rack for the hammers, and then this is a profile view, so it's a big U shape, and then the cutouts out of this outer part of the U. And then the hammers would just have 2 bends in it, and that's just for strength so that the steel doesn't flex or bend when you put a little weight on it. So, and probably make them the same width. And then I noticed here that, in the drawing, these are way too close together. The grinder would hang down quite a bit. And then somewhere in here on the post, mount the cord or the power strip. So that's the basic design. That's my idea, and let's I'm gonna go wander around here a little bit, see if I got enough steel to get started. Hey guys, so I've got my steel cut for the base. Actually, I've cut all the steel except the expanded metal that's going to fill this, and I haven't begun to lay out the racks for everything yet. So just got the base, I've got the tower, and I've got another little thing I've decided to add that you'll see here in a minute. So there's a couple ways to cut your steel when you first start out. First off, I use a chop saw because I don't have a big bandsaw or anything yet. But if you're using a chop saw, you can do like I've done, just cut them square. As you can see though, that's not going to make for a very good box because we have a 2-inch gap here. It's 1.5 by 2-inch angle. You could, in your chop saw, set your blade to 45 degrees and cut them at 45 degrees for a miter. But you would have to set your blade for 45 one way, and you'd have to keep flopping the steel back and forth. And when you're talking about a 20-foot stick that you're starting with, it gets to be a pain in the butt. So what I like to do when I'm working with that big of material is I just cut everything off square, come back with a speed square after the fact, and then I mark the 45 for a miter. And then I'll just use my 4.5 inch grinder with a cutoff wheel, and I'll cut all the 45s on there. Another option would be to cut a square out of here on one piece of the other. Basically, you'd be wanting to lap these over, and rather than lap them, you could come in and cut that square out, and then it would, instead of lapping over the top of this, they would lay in beside each other. And that's a strong joint, it's still just, it's 3 welds. You got a vertical weld, a weld across here, and a weld across here. Whereas the miter is a little faster because you've got a cut on this piece and a cut on this piece or actually it'd be this way. You've got 2 cuts on your material, and then you have only 2 welds, so it's a little bit faster from that. As far as this, you have the same number, 2 cuts, but then you have 3 welds. So, and then it's just a matter of what you want it to look like. If you look back, when I first started the channel, I built a big work table that's out in the other shop now, and that's how I did the corners on it. Is I cut out the squares, and even in that one, it's I mentioned that miters would have been probably a little faster. They also tend to look a little cleaner because you don't have these welds inside, so you can't. It's really hard to grind this weld in the back. So you either got to weld it from the underside, or with the miter, you just have one weld in here, and you can usually get most of it ground out with a 4.5 inch grinder, and then you just something to clean up the very inside corner. So whatever your preference is, though, that's the method I use when I'm working with big steels. I just cut everything off square, and then I do the 45s by hand with a hand grinder. So I'm going to get these corners cut off, and then we'll get back here and start tacking some stuff together and getting it squared. So what I've got here is 3 of the sides. All the sides are sort of where I'm at now. Is I've mitered all the corners on all the pieces we're doing, and ground a relief in the back side so I can weld that up without having a big bead out there. Using a couple of squares and a bunch of clamps, I've got it clamped. I use this big piece of tubing with a C-clamp to keep the angle from rolling up, but essentially it's all clamped to the squares to get these 2 corners square. And then I'll tack the outside and then check it again, and then I'll go ahead and tack the inside, and just get about 3 tacks on each corner until the whole box is up, and then I can do a diagonal measurement, make sure it's all exactly the way I want it, and then we'll put in a couple extra ribs on the inside. When all that's tacked, it's still square, then we'll burn it in. And then I've got a smaller box here that I'm also going to make, and that's going to go on top of the post, hold can of spray paint or oil for tools, or I'm probably going to put I may drill a bunch of holes in it. I thought I was going to be able to have enough room to just put a bunch of expanded metal in there, and I could drop screwdrivers or pry bars through it, but it's going to end up, by the time I get it all welded up, it's going to end up being a full bottom on it. So I may drill a bunch of holes in it for that same purpose. You could drop pry bars or screwdrivers or punches or whatever in there, plus still be able to put a can of spray paint or whatever. So that's where I'm at. I'm going to get the welder out, start getting this tacked up.
So one of the things I've been doing here is welding these studs in so I could store all my cutting discs and wire wheels and abrasive, flap wheels. Cutting discs are going to go right here. And all this is a piece of, I think, half-inch steel rod. And I, just cleaned up the end of it here. And then on this end, I did a little more of a grind on it so I could get a good weld. And I just used a couple of discs, set them up, not right up and tight into the corner, but somewhere close. It's going to be able to move around on it anyway. And then what I found, because of the nut that holds the caster on, if I turn the bottom one, and what I found is I just turn most of them upside down and then flip the top one right side up so I can read what it is, like 80 grit, 40 grit, whatever. But then it clears that nut and they lay a little more stable there. So I'm going to weld the last one of these on, and then we're going to work on starting to go with stuff up the pole here. So let's get this one done. That's pretty much it for that. Load up a bunch of cutting discs. Seems like every time I'm at the store I buy another package of these, so I never realize how many I have. And so this will keep them more out in the open. The reason I put the expanded metal in the bottom rather than a tray is so that as you're grinding and cutting and dust collects, it falls through instead of collecting in there and then you got to take everything out and vacuum it. So for right now, I'm just kind of mocking everything up. I'm going to get everything in place, and then I'll pull all this stuff off and paint the whole thing. You probably saw me spraying the bottom of this and the bottom of the upper tray here. That was just, they were good and hot at the time, and that stuff just really cooks on. So the next thing I want to do is install my power strip. I took it apart. The T crosses in this. Okay, so there's the cross in there, so you're supposed to put a couple screws in there and then hang it and slide it down on there. Well, that would work, except it's the slot is like for a number 8 screw or something, and every number 8 screw I have has a bigger head on it than will fit through that hole. So I'm not really sure. You guys can see. I'm not really sure what kind of screw they thought you were going to be able to push through and then pop up. So I just got some number 10 screws, 1024s, and I'm going to drill a couple of holes here and tap them, and then I'm just going to bolt this on from the inside and reassemble it on place. What I'll do initially is bolt it on, just bolt this on, I'll leave the rest of it apart, and then when I'm ready to take everything off, I'll pull this off and paint it. So, and 1024, that uses a number 25 bit. I'm going to drill a couple drills here. And we're going to go ahead and get these tapped out. This is a 11 gauge rectangular tube in here, so it's fairly thin. It's pretty quick, easy to tap. That makes that easy. Nice and straight. So then next up is we need our grinder holder, which is the point of this whole thing. So we're going to build it first, and they're actually going to go this way, same as the lower tray. And then we'll do our hammer holders, and they'll go this way. And the hammer holders, I don't know exactly where they're going to be, but we'll go ahead and do the grinder first. And I'm going to get it off this table and out of the way. I've got a couple of wrenches for the grinders that I'm hoping I'm hoping I can come up with something to kind of hold them. Cut a slot in a little piece of bracket or something and put a couple of them. But worst case, they'll lay in the tray. So let me get this off here and get this table out of the way for now. And we'll work on this from on the ground height. So my layout here is I took 4.5-inch discs, just kind of figured out what the layout would look, and I went with a 1/2 inch on each end and then 1 inch between them is what looked nice to me. We're going to do 3 on this side, 3 on the other. So I've got 4 inches that will be the backing, and this will actually weld to our post. Then we've got a 3-inch gap, and that will allow for things like, that will allow for something like the wire wheel bucket in there. And then the front, so we'll be cutting on this line and cutting these out. Then it'll get folded twice, so we'll have like a big U with this, and then that'll hang here. So my original thought when I was laying, coming up with this plan in my head was I could use my hole saws, and I ended up choosing a 2-inch hole saw. I think that's going to be big enough to get it, to get everything in without being so large that if you have a grinder disc that is completely wore out, or a wire wheel or something on there, that it won't pull back, just fall off. So I had up to 2.5 that I could have done with this type of hole saw, and then I've got much bigger on the others. So thinking that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to cut these, and I started to say my original thinking was I thought I had some material, and I think I do out there. I probably have some 2x4 foot, whereas this is like this was a remnant from something else. It's 13 and not even 13.5, a little over 13.25 inches. And I was thinking I'd be able to lay them out back to back, so when I cut one hole, both pieces would be in one shot. But rather than using another piece of metal that I might have a bigger project for, may as well just use up this remnant. I had 2 of these this size, so I'll lay out another one here, end up cutting 6 holes instead of 3, and get these cut out, and then we'll take them out. I'm pretty sure, being only 18 inches long, or just under, a little over 16.5, I can put them in that Boss 16 finger brake, and even though this is 14 gauge and that's supposed to be up to 16, I think this short, it'll go ahead and bend it. So we'll know soon. But I'll get the next one laid out identical to this, then I can put one on both sides. And with the remnant that's left over, I'm hoping we can lay out at least one, if not both, of the hammer holders. You guys see, saw me, I was starting to cut this, and then it just clicked that that it would look really nice if these holes were flared. So I looked, and I did have a 2-inch flare. So stopped cutting, went out and flared all these on the press, and took 10 minutes. And now I'll finish cutting these out. But now to give it a nice, finished look there at the hole, it's more aesthetic than anything. It will add a little strength, but that's why I stopped, and I'll finish cutting all this stuff. well, here we go. Took the better part of, actually I would say it took a full day. I messed with it yesterday some, and then almost all of it today. So I didn't have all the steel. I had all of the 14 gauge stuff, and I had the expanded metal and the angle iron. The rectangular tube, I was buying some material for another project, so I just made sure I had enough extra for this project as well. And I wanted the 3-inch wide so I could put the power cord on the side there because it was a little over 2 inches wide. And then this is 1.5 inches by 3. They just didn't have any 1 by 3, which is what I really was after, but 1.5 inches by 3 will work with the other project and certainly work well with this. So in the process of building, you know, the design changed a little bit. I moved one of these racks down lower than the other, and that was so if I get any 7-inch grinders, I'd be able to get those on here and have room underneath this shelf. Additionally, I added a couple hooks for hearing protection, and by adding this piece of angle, everything kind of lined up and looked a little better. But it also gave me another place for hammers, so I was able to put all my sledgehammers, rubber mallets, that kind of stuff in here. Right now I've got a few body hammers and dead blows and stuff. I don't know if all that's going to stay there, but probably like most of you, I have way more hammers, way more than enough hammers for all the jobs, you know, but you find a use for every one of them, so, you know, it's never worth getting rid of anything. Additionally, I added this other tray on top, and originally I was thinking I was going to be able to fill it with expanded metal and be able to put like screwdrivers and stuff in there. Well, had I turned the angle is 1.5 inches by 2, and had I turned the angle the other way, I might have had a little room, but either way I was going to have to weld it to the post, and so I really didn't have anything by the time I had that in there wasn't going to be anything, so it just became a tray. But it works really well. You can put a tape measure in there, you put a can of paint up here, my little paint pins. For now I'm just laying stuff like this in there, but I could put my phone there, whatever. So there's plenty of uses for it. I also added at the bottom, which was something I had originally planned to do. So I had originally planned to go ahead and do pegs like this for my grinding wheels and wire wheels and all that, but I hadn't drawn it into the plan, so you can see that. I think I mentioned before, the reason I went with expanded metal in there was so that it wouldn't collect dirt and grinding dust and all that, whereas this top one's definitely going to, so it'll end up having to be cleaned out. It's another reason I didn't put sides on the here, because it makes it where you can, you know, just run your hand through there, run a little brush through there, and knock everything off. So should stay pretty clean. Next step is to take everything off of it and and paint it, and then I can put the power cord on the side. Probably going to wonder why there's not any real cord management here, and that's because I expect to leave everything plugged in and then just use what I need. So the cords are going to be looping down and around to, I guess, this side over here to be plugged in. So I'm hoping that I really don't need a lot of cord management, you know. I'm going to get this cleaned off and get it painted. Finished up, painted. I don't know what the color blue is called, but it's the same one I was using on my forklift, so I decided I'd like to share the color. Ended up needing some kind of cord management, and what it worked out was with this big mallet on the end here, you really couldn't get much of a hammer in there, so I'm just running all the cords through there. They can plug in, and everything plugs into that strip, that power strip then. So, and that's got about a 15-foot cord on it, so I should be able to park this pretty close to where I was working and And typically what I find I do, when these quit working the first time, usually it's brushes. I throw them in a box, and then one day I finally come around, gather a few of them up and start fixing them. And it's either the brushes or the cords go bad, and I usually put, when I have to replace a cord, I put like a 10 or a 15-foot cord on them so I can get further away from an outlet without extension cords. So we may find that helps this too. And then what I'm thinking on this side is probably, as I add grinders for this side, I can use the center hole here or something like that. You could also go down on the inside, but it's working out. Got plenty of storage for all of the grinder wheels and wire wheels and cutoff wheels, and got a lot of these hammers out of my toolbox. So now I have, basically I gained almost 2 full drawers to so I can put all the body hammers and body dollies and stuff like that in. So for now, those aren't going to go on here. I think a project sometime soon will be to make a stump of some sort, you know, what they call, probably not going to use a tree stump to make it, may make something up out of 4x4 or 6x6 posts, but do something like that that is also storage and a place for the sandbag that I've got to go and all that. Plus I'm working on getting a few metal shaping tools that are like the top of a oxygen or acetylene tank, you know, just the cap. I saw one where somebody used the bottom side of the cap where it's got the concave surface, and I've got an old tank that was given to me. I'm gonna see if I can get it recertified so that I could use it, but if not, then I'll cut that tank up. So there's some stuff like that I'd like to build, and then as I do that, I will probably work around the idea of making another stand that has all those kind of tools together on it. But for now, I think it came out pretty much like I had planned. I added a few features, and I'm real happy with it. So I think somewhere on here I even got my, got the, I had one AllisonCustoms.com sticker left, so I think it came out nice. So yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this, and we'll see you again next week.
Thanks for watching Allison Customs Project Car TV. Like us on Facebook and check us out at AllisonCustomsOnline.com.